Live from the Stream Center in Tampa, Florida, the home of News Channel 8, your official Bucs station. This is Bucs Bonus on WFLA Now, powered by 1-800-ASK-GARY.
Get a good look, Bucs fans. You're looking at the newest members of the crew, the NFL Draft, seeing the Bucs add 7 players, including that guy right there, first-rounder Graham Barton. Big expectations to fortify the offensive line in front of Baker Mayfield. How exactly did the Bucs do with the 2024 NFL Draft class, and who are the difference makers as early as this season? That's our focus today on Bucs Bonus, of course, right here on WFLA Now, joined by Bucs Insider Dan Lucas. I'm JB Biunno. Man, I love the draft. I stayed up, Dan. I stayed up for that 26th overall selection. I was not disappointed. It's Graham Barton out of Duke. What's your take?
You and 275,000 people, literally, were in Detroit that night. I didn't know you could fit that many people.
It was wild, man.
In that Chrysler square there, but I'm sure the fire marshals probably knew about that. But I think they set records for attendance at the draft. So this draft thing moving around is getting bigger and bigger. I love the Graham Barton pick, and so do the Bucs, because they started to get a little nervous. A few of the names in front of them started to go. Laiatu Latu, Chop Robinson went to the Dolphins. So you started, when we had talked about possible names that could come to the Bucs, they started to go. And what was left when you got to about 24 was Graham Barton and Jackson Powers-Johnson, the 2 main offensive linemen that we had talked about. So I started to think right about then, about 15 minutes before the actual pick, that they were going to get one of those 2 guys, and they sure did. Good for them.
And one thing that I really pay attention to during the NFL Draft, especially really that first round, when we're super focused on the first round, I love to pay attention to how quickly teams get in their picks, Dan. And I can tell you with confidence, there was no team that got in their pick faster than the Bucs. I mean, the countdown started, and I think it was within 35 to 40 seconds.
Yeah,
I mean,
pick
the pick was in.
Yeah.
So what does that tell you about Graham Barton and how high up they had him on their board right here in Tampa?
Well, it's funny. They went to a shot of the Bucs draft room at the team facility, and Jason Light was on the phone before the pick was in. So he's on the phone with the guy, and he handed the phone over to Todd Bowles, I believe, and he looked at the rest of the room. He can't hear what he's saying, but he's going, he's doing that, meaning they're all crying wherever the Graham Barton party is. And at the time, you're wondering who the pick is, but yeah, you knew they've just spoken to the guy, and now they're going to call it in. And that was pretty exciting, I think. So, like I said, they weren't going to entertain moving back like they did 2 years ago. 2 years ago, they wanted Logan Hall, and they were right around either 26 or 27, in that range. And they got the feel, based on the teams around them, that we're not going to be interested in that defensive line spot, that they could pull that off and move back to get him on day 2, which has financial ramifications, a second-round pick versus a first-round pick. They pulled it off and got away with it. This time, if they didn't take Graham Barton, he was going. And he was going to go with the next 1 or 2 picks, because that's you were now at the best available, and that's where he fell on that list. So they were thrilled to have him still available. I think I recall them saying that the Dallas Cowboys had made a trade.
They traded back, right?
They traded back, and at that time, because the Cowboys were potentially one of the teams that could have taken him, when they traded back, that really opened the lane. That this was going to happen. So, I'm happy for the Bucs, happy for Jason Light, all the work they put into it, and, getting their guy. And we talked about it, either edge or offensive line could be the immediate impact on this team. And, oh, by the way, they got an edge in round 2.
That's right.
So, yeah, they addressed 2 needs with their first 2 picks. Check and check as far as I'm concerned with these picks.
We're about to go through the 7 selections that the Buccaneers made in 7 rounds over the course of the NFL Draft. But really quickly, a final note on Graham Barton. Of course, you being our Bucs insider, you're talking to people involved with the organization. Is the plan at center for Barton, or are they looking guard? Now, because he's versatile. There he is out of Duke, number 62 there. He's played left tackle. Where do you play him on day 1?
Originally, the thought was this is your center, period. That Robert Hainsey, his first full year as center, trying to replace Ryan Jensen didn't quite materialize like they wanted it to. Now, since they've made the pick, and we've heard from Jason Light and Todd Bowles, they're taking a step back. They're saying, where will he fit in? Well, he's going to fit in one of those two spots, center or left guard. And I would have to think that whatever spot he takes, Hainsey's going to be the other one. And I think Hainsey's a good offensive lineman. I didn't know that he was going to be that criticized as a center. I'm going to presume that Barton is the center when this is all said and done. But it is going to be a competition during the offseason and into training camps. So that's going to be one of the things we watch. Those are the two spots, though, left guard or center.
As we look here at the 2024 draft selections for your Tampa Bay Buccaneers, you see the big guy, Graham Barton, up top. Let's go full screen here because I want to take a look at these 7 overall selections. As Dan noted, going with Chris Braswell out of Alabama at outside linebacker, then addressing the safety position, then getting a wideout, running back, another offensive line piece in Elijah Klein, and then a tight end there in the final round. What names here jump off the board?
Really,
intriguing names.
The first 5 are excellent picks, and you have to consider who was around when those picks arrived. So they took best available. I'll go round 3 and round 4. Bucky Irving, the running back from Oregon, and Jalen McMillan, the wide receiver from Washington. McMillan was injured a lot last season, missed a chunk of time. He was punished by that in this draft. There's a lot of experts that think he was a solid mid to high second rounder. So the Bucs, if this plays out, McMillan's healthy, comes in and competes, he's going to be your number 3 receiver, and we'll start calling him a steal from the draft. So I think that's a very good potential for him. Bucky Irving is a Warwick Dunn size guy, height at least, stocky, muscular, breaks tackles. So he's going to bring a different aspect to the game from the running standpoint. Also catches passes, just like Rachaad White. So Rachaad White, remember, he's a guy, when Rachaad White gets into the open field, forget about it. He's going to get 18 yards on you before the time he's shifty. Bucky Irving will break tackles, and he's also got the ability to cut down the field, which is what he did a lot in Oregon. Almost 2,000 yards in Oregon. Oh, he's almost 1,200 yards. I misspoke there. He had 11 rushing touchdowns, 2 receiving touchdowns. So versatile, that guy, Bucky Irving. And Jalen McMillan, I think, winds up being a steal. Chris Braswell, the second rounder, he's competing for a starting spot opposite Yaya Diaby already. So he's going to be in the spotlight there on the edge rush. Because they're trying to find the replacement to Shaq Barrett.
A lot of excitement here because we, of course, on our pre-draft episode of Bucs Bonus, of course, we were just talking right before the draft. We were talking about positions of need, and they're all represented here. I mean, as far as Jason Light and addressing the areas that were really important to address, talking about offensive line, talking about bringing in perhaps a running back behind Rachaad White, some of those pieces that they need.
Yeah.
You see them represented here. The one curious omission, perhaps, is cornerback. Now, what are the Bucs' plans as far as we've seen a rotation of different names at the cornerback position in the past few seasons, Dan? So, what are they looking at for corner at the moment?
In the corner, remember they signed a couple of free agents for depth purposes, and so I think position-wise they've got personnel. Zion McCollum takes over the spotlight. He's going to be the guy to watch during preseason and training camp as he gets ready for his 3rd NFL season. Jamel Dean is settled. He's over there. They expect more out of Jamel Dean to be the leader of this group. Zion McCollum's the guy in the spotlight. And then you start throwing in guys, Christian Izien, who can play both position, really both the corner and the safety, kind of that nickel combo type spot. And then I think it's just a depth thing for sure after that. But the thinking is, and hearing the Bucs defensive coaches, the assistant coaches yesterday, is they really have gone out of their way to disrupt the passing game of the opponent with moves they've made and what they have in mind for these guys. And it's not so much the sacks that they're talking about. They are talking about pressure on the quarterback to create throws that are just a little bit off. You know, a little. If you're off by a couple of percentages at the throw, that means you're way off by the time the ball gets to its destination. They are trying to affect the throws of the quarterback, and they think that the pass rush is going to be successful at that. And the effect there is the corners can kind of go more man coverage, and they're not going to be asked to do a whole lot beyond playing their position and playing their man. So but they want more interceptions. So there's give and you can't have everything. So I think that the linebackers are going to have to take part in the interception thing, and the corners and the safeties. And if this plays out right, maybe those numbers go up. We'll see.
Right now on WFLA.com, our own Casey Sloan doing a roundup of all of the letter grades that are assigned by the same folks that we were talking about last week, Dan, who do all the mock drafts. You know, the millions of mock drafts that are out there. Well, of course, afterwards, then you have all the pundits come out and they release their letter grades. Okay, how did the Bucs do? Is it an A kind of class? Is it a B, C, D? There were not too many low grades, but the entirety of it are rundown.
I'm gonna guess solid B was the average.
I believe that
maybe a B plus.
That B's are very present on the story, and I'm looking at it right now. You know, you have from Chad Reuter of NFL.com, Mel Kiper of ESPN. So if you want a simple one-stop roundup for all of those letter grades, you can find it, of course, on our website, the website of your official Bucs station. Use Channel 8. You can find it right now on WFLA.com. The headline, 2024 NFL Draft Grades, Bucs receive high praise on post-draft report card. Now, that brings me, of course, to the next question for our Bucs Insider, Dan Lucas. Dan, as you look here at this class, guess what? It's your time to play professor. You're giving the letter grade.
Ooh.
What is your letter grade for the 2024 draft class for the Bucs?
Well, it was mission accomplished with the first pick, mission accomplished with the second pick. Depth, might have a third receiver there. Depth. I think it is a very solid B. When you get to the lower levels, it gets so subjective. When you start to get at the end of day 2 and into day 3, the picks are coming fast and furious. The Bucs took, as expected, they would take a running back, they took a receiver, then they even got a tight end at the end. That is kind of the MO of Jason Light. You keep rolling guys in, and one of these is gonna stick. So I think I said solid B. I mean, high B for sure. I can definitely look at this between Barton, Braswell, and probably McMillan, those three. So round 1, round 2, and the second guy picked in round 3. Those are 3 guys that are going to be on the field a lot.
Like early. That was my next question.
Yes.
So there's some early contributors here.
Yes.
Who do you look at as more of a project potentially that might not see as much time on the field maybe in the first half of this season, but maybe
I think probably Tyke Smith at the safety. We haven't really mentioned him much. He is not going to be asked to carry much of the workload. Now, if an injury happens, that all changes. However, he's got Jordan Whitehead, Antoine Winfield Jr. To work with, and they're talking about moving him up into that nickel spot, which is generally either a mix of a corner or a safety. So that might be the majority of his reps and time in games, but he's not being asked to come in and fill a hole immediately like Graham Barton is. You know, Graham Barton's got to get on the field on opening day, and he's got to contribute. Chris Braswell, I'd say get on the field opening day and contribute. Jalen McMillan, if this works out, he will be on the field contributing on opening day. Bucky Irving will be an interesting pick to watch to see if he fits in that run game, if all those things we just mentioned that he did in Oregon play out. But Tyke Smith, to me, has a learning curve that he could be considered a project, in my opinion.
Of course, the full write-up of all the evaluations that have been coming in on these picks, you can find it on WFLA.com. Dan, you know I like to throw you curveballs on this show, right? It's always fun to just we don't have a script with this show, everybody. Dan comes in here.
No, we don't follow rules.
We don't follow rules.
The one thing we don't have is my coffee cup. Where's
your coffee cup today?
I'm missing I didn't get to it before I came in. I can assure you I'm missing it dearly right now.
It is.
Yes.
It's odd not seeing it as part of the program here. So the curveball is this, and of course it comes down to the first round selection that had the NFL world buzzing because it has massive implications for the NFC South, and that of course for a guy right here in Tampa Bay, homebred Michael Penix Jr.
Yep,
out of nowhere. Dan.
Unbelievable.
We
pick.
talked about him on the last episode, going somewhere on maybe the way back end of round one, maybe a day 2 kind of guy.
Yeah.
And would you believe it? He goes 8th to the Falcons. No one had the Falcons really seriously considering a quarterback.
It was so stunning that the immediate reaction was Kirk Cousins' agent saying, basically, what's going on
Shock.
here? What is this? You just signed us to a 7-figure or whatever the deal was for Cousins, and now you're going to draft this guy. What is the message you're sending here? The Falcons tried to clear the air and say this is a long-term thing, and we think we have the future. Kirk Cousins is our guy. Okay, Michael Penix isn't going to come here and beat him out and win and be the opening day starter.
Penix is 20? How old is he?
He's 24. He's been in 6 college seasons.
Today is May 1st, 2024. He turns 24.
Right.
He's a week from today.
He is a mature NFL ready quarterback, and he's been in systems that are going to allow him to prosper. His thing has the biggest concerns for him are health. And can he withstand a season? That essentially was the knock on him when all the quarterbacks were ranked. And then his passing accuracy. He was surrounded by weapons in Washington. One of them, of course, being Jalen McMillan, who happens to be drafted by your Buccaneers.
That's right.
But his two top receivers were first rounders. So this is a guy that really fit in nicely. I think if you groom him and let him grow, I think he's going to be not a steal, I guess. He's going to be really good pick for the Falcons.
We're always going to bring it back to how it impacts the Buccaneers.
Right.
So a lot to be said about the selection for Atlanta in the first round of Michael Penix Jr., quarterback out of Washington. But as far as it relates to the Bucs, you could make the argument that in the short term, it's good for the Bucs because all the pre-draft buzz with the Falcons were all the holes that they had on defense and all of the areas on defense that they desperately needed to address, and to not have a bona fide first round defensive disruptor, potentially making things difficult for Baker Mayfield in the NFC South with the 2 matchups that the Bucs have with the Falcons next year. I mean, that's a good thing short term. You could then also though flip that coin, Dan, and say, man, is Michael Penix Jr. going to be a headache for the Buccaneers in the years to come? It's an interesting thought.
Think, in my opinion, the first round of the NFL draft, whether you're pick number 1 or pick 32, you should really find a guy. Obviously, best available comes into play. But I feel that the first round pick should be a guy who's going to get on the field in day 1 and make your team better. You have a chance for free, not free agency, not having to woo people to come here. You have a chance to take a slot on your team that when you look at the Bucs offense, for instance, you're like, okay, it got better. We have all these. We got a future Hall of Famer on it. We got this. How can we get better? What are the spots we need to address? That's why Graham Barton comes into play. For the Falcons, for your argument, Michael Penix doesn't fit that. Mm-hmm. And so if he's not supposed to be the guy for 2 seasons, is that staff going to be there in 2 seasons? You don't know what's going on. That's the thing. The NFL is about now. Do it now, because in 2 years, everybody could be gone. And if things don't go well. So, I think it was a risky pick overall. Selfishly, for us in the Bay Area, we're so proud of him and his story. He went through the multiple surgeries. He had knee injuries and had to resurrect himself. Goes out to Washington, follows his one coach he had at Indiana out to Washington, and it was a storybook. So it's a great, tremendous story for a local guy to get drafted that high. I think it's great. Just happens to be in the NFC South. If he were picked and they were in the NFC West or something, we would really be lauding this as, this is wonderful. But I do think it's wonderful for Michael Penix and his family and his coach too, from Tampa Bay Tech. And I know his draft party was hopping with all of the family and coaches, and so they're proud of him. They're proud of him.
You can take it to the bank. There will be a day when Michael Penix Jr. is starting for the Falcons at Raymond James Stadium right here in Tampa, and that will be an event. There's no doubt about it.
He'll have hometown folks behind him, and there have been a number of hometowners that have come here and had big crowds for them. It's been neat to watch. And I remember Dexter Jackson years ago came in with the Seahawks, and we did a story with his family up in Carrollwood, and the Carrollwood part of Tampa, and they were so excited. And I just love to see the hometown guys make it.
Yeah,
and by the way, there's a lot of hometown guys that were in this draft too. Clearwater
Friday Night
Central
alum,
Catholic,
right?
Berkeley Prep, different schools in the area. So as always, the Bay Area is just churning it out as usual,
representing.
Right, exactly.
Even in the first round, first 10 picks of the NFL draft. Really cool to see. So when we were talking earlier, Dan, about draft grades from all of the national sports writers and the analysts and those who live and breathe the draft and prospects all year long, as I read all of these draft grades, the Falcons are usually in the C or lower range because sports writers are saying to themselves, man, the Falcons should have gone defense. Should have gone, at the very least, give Kirk Cousins some help and build around Cousins. Don't, draft his future successor in the first round when you have such a valuable pick. So that brings me to this question. Now that the draft is in the rear view mirror, the dust has begun to settle, so to speak. What does the NFC South really look like for this season? Are the Buccaneers... Should the Buccaneers be considered the favorite? Kirk Cousins, of course, coming to the division is going to reinvigorate the Falcons' offense. It's another year of Derek Carr under center, of course, for the Saints, and you can expect improvement with Bryce Young and the Panthers. There's no way they're going to be that bad again. You would imagine that he's going to take the next step as a former first overall draft pick. So, what does the NFC South look like in this upcoming NFL season?
I do think Dave Canales makes Carolina a better team, particularly Bryce Young, a project, a quarterback guy working with a young, talented quarterback. How many more wins is that? Not many, but Carolina will be taking a step in the right direction for them. Does that mean that the Bucs split with Carolina instead of winning both games? I don't know. The Bucs fans hope that Carolina plays well, except for Dave Canales, except when they play Tampa Bay. They want Tampa Bay to win both games. But I think the contenders for the division are the Bucs, and the trendy pick is the Falcons because of the Kirk Cousins deal. But I don't think the Saints are going away. And they were almost non-existent in the mainstream coverage of the draft, the Saints. So I still think it's a three-horse race, if you will. Bucs, Saints. I'd say Bucs first, Saints second, Falcons third, if you were going to put it on tiers for me.
I brought up Vegas Insider, just typing that in while we're here live to see where the current odds are for
what are they? Because last year,
give me a guess.
Remember last year?
On the spot, give me a guess.
These guys last year put the Bucs dead in the water last year, and it was not the case. So I'm going to say Falcons first.
You are correct.
Falcons
just
first.
About every sports book or credible sports book in Vegas right now has the Falcons as the likely favorite, but the Buccaneers not too far behind, and then followed by the Saints, and obviously way out there at plus 1,400 are the Panthers. So that's how it. Look, a lot of time between now and the season kickoff,
the Falcons are exciting. JB, Bijan Robinson, I thought he was misused last year in that offense. We'll see what they do now. Kyle Pitts, to me, might be one of the best tight ends in the division for sure, if not the whole upper echelon of the NFC. It's a good football team. And Kirk Cousins,
Drake London finally has a quarterback to really give him the ball.
They upgraded at quarterback for sure. The thing for me when it comes to Kirk Cousins, he didn't really blow me away with the Vikings last year in that opening day game against the Bucs. And other than his miraculous Washington comeback, did you like that? That one.
I think which is still copyright trademarked.
Exactly. He has been underwhelming in that, especially on the big stage. I'm not even sure he has a playoff win in his career. So this is, to me, it's head scratching, but maybe a change of venue will do him better for sure. But I thought the Bucs handled him well last year with Minnesota.
He has one playoff win in his career. It wasn't, if I'm not mistaken,
with Washington.
I believe it was with the Vikings. Wasn't it is it the miracle game with Stephon Diggs
against the Saints? Was he the quarterback in that game?
I'm trying to remember. That's something we might have to check off
all
stream.
A blur.
But
yeah, I bet people watching probably know it like that. They know exactly.
It was 2020 NFC wild card game. Actually, Vikings at Saints.
Saints. Okay,
went into New Orleans and pulled out a victory. So his one win there.
There you go. Okay, so and the Vikings have been really a heck of a team for the past couple of years. Couldn't get over the hump, so they kind of decimated their roster a little bit because of that. So we'll see what he does in Atlanta. But he's got tools for sure. Like you mentioned, Drake London, Kyle Pitts. It's a pretty good team.
Lastly, before we wrap up this episode, what's next on the Bucs calendar? Draft class obviously is here in Tampa, getting ready. They got their numbers assigned as well. So what's next for the Bucs?
The off-season program is in full swing. Next week, we're going to hear from the offensive coaches midweek, and then next weekend, not this coming weekend, next weekend, the rookies are here for the rookie mini camp, 3 days at the Bucs facility, and it's also the players that they've acquired after the draft, the undrafted players, undrafted talent, and there's a few guys in that bunch that might stick through the offseason. The one guy, the name that stands out to me right away is Kalen DeLoach, a linebacker from FSU that I think a lot of people were stunned he didn't get picked in the draft. So that could be a guy who hangs around into training camp for the Bucs. So that might be a guy that might have an opportunity to get on the roster. We'll see. And Jeremy Musa, a quarterback from Florida A&M, who I'm rooting for, not going to make the team, but I hope he comes in and performs well, gets on tape, and can do something there. He had an amazing turnaround at FAMU. I think he went 20-3 as a 2-year starter there. Florida A&M, of course, one of the top teams last year. They won the SWAC. Really good program. So I hope Musa gets attention from this rookie camp and performs well, and we'll see what he does.
It's the countdown for the regular season. As far as I'm concerned, it begins right after the draft as we get really excited for football. The Tampa Bay Lightning, of course, their season coming to an end. The baseball season for the Rays in full swing, but football season, everyone knows.
It's always football season.
We'll be here before you know it.
Exactly.
And we'll have you covered here on your official Bucs station with Bucs Insider Dan Lucas. I'm JB Biunno. Again, one more time, you can read right now on WFLA.com our roundup of all the post-draft report cards from our own Casey Sloan. You can click on the link in the description on this video. It'll take you right over to our website to see all those various grades. And we will see you next time. We're here monthly for episodes on Bucs Bonus during the offseason, weekly during the season. So we will see you next month here for our next edition of the program. For Dan Lucas, I'm JB Biunno. We'll see you next time here from the Stream Center on Bucs Bonus.